Okay guys, hello and welcome back to the Novice Lumberjack. Hopefully it's not too echoey, but here we are. I'm sitting here with my Swedish log splitter and I got a new moisture meter. My old moisture meter, there was nothing wrong with it, but I never really liked it. And it sat there for so long, I never really used these things much. The battery corroded and I just threw it away. So I went today because of the debacle I've been having with trying to figure out why I can't get white oak to burn very well. I was like, you know what? Yeah, moisture meter. Let's get a moisture meter. And this was in the tool section, not in the, stove section. I figured I'd find it there if I found it at all. But I got lucky and asked somebody, he looked it up and he said, yeah, there's a moisture meter over there with the tools. They had a Klein, which was about $45, and they had this Cobalt, which was $30. And I went ahead and got this Cobalt. Maybe I'll do a review on that later, but with my situation, I'm not going to really show you too much. But I like it. It seems really nice, and it's got a temperature readout on it. You can change it from Celsius to Fahrenheit. You can put in the different types of species of wood that you're actually testing. You can set it to test wood or test lumber, which all it does is it changes the scale a little bit. No big deal. But I'm going to make sure that I'm recording. Yeah, we're recording. Okay, so to test it off, I have a piece of pine lumber that has been sitting out here for a long time. Let's see. So we go ahead and jab it in there, and you're just going to have to trust me with the readings. This reads 9.5. 9.5% on this pine lumber that, has been sitting in this environment. It gets a lot of moisture out here. It's not like it's in the on the inside dried out and stuff. So anyways, first up, if you remember the videos that I'm talking about, the first fire I showed you was a raging fire with a whole bunch of these. It's got a lot of bark on there. It's not been split in the middle. So the moisture content on this should be pretty high if we're going to see a high moisture content. Also, this did not sit out in the sun like the other stuff did. It may have sat out there for a little while, but honestly, it probably went straight to stacking in that room, and it's been in my wood room, which stays dry. But yeah, I get it. There's not a lot of airflow and there's no direct sunlight. So it's very possible that this thing has a high moisture content, even though it's been cut in this fashion for over a year. Right at a year. I say over a year, but give or take. It's like a week older than a year. Let's split it. All right, let's see what you got. 14.7. So 14.7% wood should fucking burn. All right, now this is what I typically burn. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking hard about it, and I'm like, I'm so spoiled with the red oak that I have here on my property. I almost never have to cut down a tree, and I say my property, but it just sold. Closing date February 14th, and anyways, so we'll talk more about that, like maybe in a different video. But anyways, this is what I typically burn. It's red oak, and it's been split up and sitting in that room for over a year, like probably a year and a half, So let's see how dry it is. No. Yep. This is 20%. So this is the red oak that I burn and love, and it's at 20%, whereas the other piece that I don't like was at 14%. Let's test this other piece again. 14.6, baby. 14.5, it just dropped. Oh, right there, it's only at 13%. You telling me that this right here, I mean, this should burn like freaking paper. Paper. So obviously, yeah, I'm like, the red oak, this stuff, I put it in, it burns. I just put a stick in, and man, it's burning beautiful. It's wonderful. And that's at 20% moisture. 20%! Now this is that white oak. I mean, okay, did I fail to mention, this was white oak as well. And this is the stuff that I'm saying I don't like. I don't like it. It's bur oak. But I've burned post oak, right? Corey, you mentioned post oak's big out there in Oklahoma. I've burned water oak. I think that's about it for the white oak species. I think. I've also burned cherry. When I did the list the other day, there were so many things I missed. I've burned elm. I've burned sycamore. You know, the only thing that really sticks out to me, like truly, is that like red oak is just ridiculously superior. Now, I will break that down and say that here on my property, I have two species of red oak. I have southern red oak and I have scarlet red oak or scarlet oak. Actually, three. Blackjack oak. That's another one that I've burned. Okay, the scarlet oak is not nearly as good as the southern red oak. It's good. It's good, but it does not put out the heat that the regular red oak does. And it's real nice dark red. My mind told me, I was like, oh, this stuff's going to really rock and roll. Not like regular red oak. Okay, so this is a piece that I just pulled. This is, again, that bur oak, the white oak, right? This is that bur oak. I pulled it right off the top of the pile because those were the pieces that I was burning. I wasn't going to dig into the middle of the pile. So we're going to test one right off the top of the pile and see what the moisture content is on it. Let's see what it is on the outside, because I mean, it was just covered with snow. So yeah, 27.6, 27.4 is bouncing around there on the outside. So yeah, that's a little bit of moisture for sure. Let's check it out on the inside though. Oh my God, 51%. 51%. It went in there soft and easy too. So I just got a slightly rotten piece right there. Yeah, that same thing. 50, 51. It keeps dropping, but yeah, whenever you see 50, that's way too much moisture. Let me go grab another piece and hopefully I'll get one that's not rotten. This is the pile of mostly white oak. There is some red oak in there as well. But, and I would have pulled from the upper levels of the pile. This pile has been split up and sitting here since probably late March. Yeah, maybe early March. Yeah, probably early March, because it was all cut up off of the tree on January the 2nd. So it's been there March, April, May, June, July, August, October, September, October, November, December, like 10 months. You know, about 10 months sitting there in Atlanta on the hottest summer on record in a city named Hotlanta. This got direct sunlight for several hours out of the day, good airflow, and if it isn't seasoned after sitting that long in Atlanta, 2024 was the hottest summer on record, an average temp of 66. It was blazing freaking hot. And if it hasn't seasoned out sitting there like this in direct sunlight for 10 months, Now it's been cut up for over a year, for a year, cut off the tree, but split for about 10 months. And the tree that it came from was a healthy tree that got taken down in a windstorm and sat there for at least another full year, possibly more. So that should be seasoned. And if it isn't, well, this species of wood is not something I'm interested in burning. If it takes that long, if it can't season in a situation like that, that's a problem. This is how my wood normally seasons out. I have this room. I got 2 rooms that I dedicate to firewood. This was last year's, and typically I would be filling this up with more wood for next winter. Okay, I would be doing that right now at this time of year. But I've just sold this place. So anyways, so no need for me to go further with filling up firewood, because somebody else is buying this. And it's their task, or they're going to actually install central air. But anyways, this is how it normally sits. One of you guys were like, what is that building you're in? Well, until here recently, I lived in an old nursing home. This is an old nursing home. And this is one of the rooms where an old person sat here and got visited by family, hopefully. But, you know, spent the last moments of their life. And now it's filled with firewood. And I think that's pretty damn cool. But anyways, the windows are open across, you know, so it doesn't get stagnant in here at all. And it's covered. We got a good roof overhead. And it seasons out really well, as you'll see whenever I start testing wood like this. This right here is off of the white oak tree that we're questioning, and I'm having problems with it burning. And we'll see what a stick like that registers on the moisture meter, as well as sticks like this, you know. Okay, so I'm back. This piece seems to be good and solid. Let's go ahead and just see what it is on the outside. On the outside, it's set 8%, 8.1. 8.1 on the outside. Remember, this right here was I just pulled off the top of the pile. It was just covered in snow, and the snow has just melted. You know, it started melting today. Well, all right. Yeah, the outside, right here on the outside, we're at 10%. On the inside, 25%. So, that might be mystery solved. You get me? That really might be mystery solved. It still doesn't fully explain why this stuff wasn't burning like fire. Because I just did that, wasn't it like 14%? On that, this stuff should be burning like crazy, but it don't, even once it gets through the bark. Yeah, it gets hotter, it's better once it gets through the bark, but it ain't good enough. It ain't good enough. The 20% moisture content of the red oak, far superior than the 14% content white oak. And then this stuff right here showing, you know, it's dry as can be, you know, and it's set out there in, you know, the hottest summer on record in Atlanta. It's freaking hot, crazy hot, direct sunlight. So that explains why the outside is so dry. But it also tells a story, right? It tells a real story of this thing was able to sit out in the weather for split like this for almost a full year, and it still didn't dry out. So that tells a big story about white oak because yeah, it is very dense wood. Very, very dense wood. That's why it gets used with boats so often, things like that. Trailers, you know, like a flatbed trailer, you know, where they pull heavy equipment and stuff. White oak's what people want to go to because it's so dense. The fibers are so small that water can't penetrate, which would mean, obviously, water probably can't quite get out either. So, is it mystery solved? Halfway. Yeah, my nice bigger pieces that should be really dry. Like if that pile was red oak, it would have dried out completely. It would have so dried out. But it wasn't. It was white oak, and so it just, I guess, may take a lot more effort. Maybe with white oak, you really need to stack it right, and you really need to. But I mean, this was sitting on top of the pile, direct sunlight for a good 10 months. Okay, this should have dried out. So am I in any way, shape, or form going to take back my thoughts? And I learned a lot putting that video out. You guys put a lot of good knowledge in my head and made me think of things I hadn't thought of yet. It was fantastic, really. And it made me second guess and question myself about, well, is the white oak actually good? I just have, maybe my species of white oak isn't so good or something, you know, something, whatever. Is it really actually good firewoods? I'm going to actually go ahead and still stick steady and strong to it. No, it's horrible firewood. It's terrible firewood. I don't care what the BTU rating of it is per pound or whatever. From my experience, white oak is bad. And I don't have an explanation for it because this at 14% should blaze, but it doesn't. This at 25%, you're like, oh, okay, well, this got a high moisture content. That probably shouldn't blaze. But it's been sitting in Hotlanta for almost a full year, split with good airflow, out in the sun. So even if you could get this to 14%, to 10%, right? The idea that you've got to season it for 2 full years, maybe 3, because that tree was down and dead. I mean, you know, it died in a windstorm. It was a big, healthy tree. You can see it if you look up my video on the Husqvarna 55 with a 28-inch bar where I'm cutting up a down tree. That's the tree. It was a good, healthy tree that got taken out by a windstorm. So, and it was on the ground for at least a year. And so that right there is part of the drying out process. You know, you don't need to do that or anything, but sitting on the ground, you know, and I say on the ground, it wasn't, it was a down tree. I cut it all up. Just because it was sitting on the ground doesn't mean that, ooh, it just rotted away into the ground. No, I'm not talking about this. You guys know, you cut down trees, and whenever a tree's that big around, it can sit there on the ground for 8 years and not rot, especially white oak. So, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna stick to my guns on that. I don't like it. I don't like white oak as firewood. You know, it's I'd definitely rather burn maple, rather burn any red oak. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I think is better, which is just so contrary to what one would think. One would think that, you know, it would be great, but it's just, I would give it mediocre at best, you know. Anyways, check out my boots. You want to see a video on Drew's boots? Maybe I'll do a video on Drew's boots. I just want to add in here as a last thought, we got the fire going, right? That it's very shocking to me that it actually seasoned better in my room than it did outside with direct sunlight on it and everything. That wood right there, I would have guessed that it really dried out like crazy, but it did not. So that situation that I have set up to where every, starting in, November, I always have wood on hand and everything, and I start splitting it up and putting it and stacking it in those rooms, filling it up for the next winter. So typically I take green wood, I split it up, and I stack it directly in that room, and then I burn it the next winter, and I've never had a problem doing that. I've got good seasoned wood, and it works out fantastic. So it really just completely surprised me and took me off guard that I'll be damned. It seasons better inside that room than it does in direct sunlight. But we do get a lot of rain and stuff here in Atlanta, so it's like, but I would have still expected it to season better out there in that pile, because that pile has been there, 10 months. 10 months, and it was so hot this summer, I just knew that was going to be really well seasoned. 25%. Anyways, later.